What up, nerds? It is I, Ruben, with Nerd Space Games, here to talk about Resident Evil 9 and the leak, rumor, news, whatever you want to call it, surrounding the game, as there's a big one that's been going around making its rounds, and it's coming from a somewhat reliable source, someone that has gotten things wrong in the past, but also someone that has gotten things right in the past, and that, of course, being Andy over at Biohazard Declassified. Now, look, before we get started, I want to mention that, like every rumor and leak that I cover on this channel, take it with a huge grain of salt, because, you know, every leaker, doesn't matter who they are, how trustworthy they are, how reliable they are, they have gotten something wrong in the past. So I don't want to get you guys overly hyped about this game. The only reason why I'm covering it is because I just want to create some discussion around it and talk about my opinions about this, if this is true, and talk about the things that I don't think are going to be true, and even if they are true, talk about the things that I don't think should be included in the game with these rumors and leaks going around. Also, I know some of you guys have been talking about it during the stream. It was something that I wasn't going to cover because I fell behind on it and I didn't jump on it right away. But since you guys been asking me during the streams, I figured, you know what the hell? Let's just cover it so that way you guys can hear my opinions about this leak. And, you know, we can discuss it in the comments down below. So definitely leave your comment down below and let me know what your opinion is about this leak. If you think it's true, if you think it's not true. And what do you like most about this leak that you hope 100% is true, that you want it to be true, you want to manifest it? Tell me in the comments down below. Starting off with the main characters, it looks like that Jill and Leon are both going to return in Resident Evil 9 as the leading characters of the game, but they will not be alone, as they will be joined by Chris and Barry as supporting characters. As far as how they're going to look, Jill's going to dress very similar to how she looked in RE5 DLC, the Lost in Nightmares DLC. Leon, on the other hand, is going to look like how he did in Resident Evil Damnation, the CG movie, the second one. As far as their physical appearance, Jill's going to look very similar to how she looked in Death Island, which makes sense because of the reveal that they did in that movie. And Leon's going to look much older, which also makes sense, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. Focusing on the story next, the game is going to be set 4 years after Resident Evil Village, and by that I mean the main game of RE Village, not the post-credit scene that we get 16 years into the future with Rosemary. Jill from the BSAA and Leon from DSO investigate an island where the company, The Connections, who created Evelyn, is based out of. The company is creating mass clones of Evelyn using the Megamycete that we see in Resident Evil Village. Chris and Barry, as I mentioned earlier, will support Jill and Leon via radio calls. Rose Winters is mentioned in the game, however she doesn't appear in the game. Regarding the fact that Rosemary was mentioned, apparently her blood is going to be used to create a vaccine for the island residents. Jill and Leon will be infected with the Megamycete at some point in the game. Blue Umbrella returns, The Connections return. Resident Evil 9 will include RE7 and Village Megamycete storyline. As far as the locations in the game, it seems that the main setting in the game, like I mentioned earlier, is going to be set on an island in which the Connections is based out of. On top of that, we are going to see an abandoned hospital, caves, abandoned houses, dark forest, abandoned factory, laboratory, and a temple. And that's pretty much going to cover the rumors. Now let's dive into this, break this down, and give you guys my opinion. First off, Jill and Leon as the leads. That makes perfect sense. Leaks and rumors have already talked about that in the past, and they all claim the same thing, that Leon is going to be the main character. Now, as far as Jill goes, that was a little more hit or miss. I know a lot of people were saying that Jill was going to be involved in the game somehow, but they didn't know to what extent. Well, this leak claims that Jill and Leon are both going to be the main characters, and it implies that they're each going to have their own campaign, or they're going to be a single campaign but broken into different parts. We don't have more details on that, but that's what it seems to be implying. I think that's awesome. It's been a long time since we've seen these characters canon-wise in the timeline outside of the CG movies. I think the last time we saw Jill timeline-wise was Resident Evil 5, if you don't count Death Island, and the last time we saw Leon was Resident Evil 6. So we haven't seen either of these characters in a mainline game timeline-wise since what, like years, like Resident Evil 6 and Resident Evil 5 for each of them. That's crazy to me because both of these characters are fan favorites, so it's going to be pretty awesome to see these characters come together. And more importantly, these characters have not connected with each other in a Resident Evil video game. This is going to be the first time that happens. Yes, we saw them in Death Island together, but this is going to be the first time we see Jill and Leon together in a game, and that sounds awesome. I do believe that this leak is true, but this is where things get a little fan servicey. Let's take a look at the supporting characters, Chris and Barry. Now, Chris makes perfect sense. Chris definitely makes sense. I mean, you know, the cliffhanger of Resident Evil Village implied that Chris was going to head over to BSAA headquarters and figure out what the hell is going on with the BSAA, and why are they using BOW weapons? That being said, it doesn't seem like that this game, according to this leak, is going to address that cliffhanger at all, because it seems like that they are instead going to focus on the connections, not the BSAA. So I don't know what that means, and the fact that Chris is going to be involved in the story, it seems weird that they're moving away from that cliffhanger. Now, that being said, they have moved away from cliffhangers like that before. Just look at the Natalia thing, which brings me over to Barry Burton as a supporting character. That's where things get heavy on the fan service. I don't think that's true. I really don't. I don't think Barry's going to be a supporting character for a few different reasons. For one, Barry has that whole cliffhanger ending with Natalia. If Barry's involved in this game in some way, they are going to have to address that cliffhanger ending in some way at some point in this game. And I don't know if Capcom's ready to kind of like deal with that. They kind of moved away from that cliffhanger, and I think they just want to stay away from it. And on top of that, Barry's like up there in age. You think Chris and Leon are old? Barry's up there. So I really don't think Barry being a supporting character is accurate at all. I think that might be a miscommunication in terms of Andy's sources, but that's what the leak is claiming. I would love to see it. I want to see a Stars reunion more though, so I would love to see Rebecca Chambers involved in this game. Now, as far as Jill dressing like RE5 DLC, Lost in Nightmares, that sounds awesome. It does make sense for her character. It seemed kind of weird that Jill went back to her RE3 remake costume in Death Island. That doesn't make sense to me. So this right here does make sense. Her looking more like tactical than she did in Resident Evil 3 Remake makes a lot of sense for her character. Leon, on the other hand, dressing like his RE Damnation outfit, I do not like that at all, because I don't like that outfit in RE Damnation. That's actually my least favorite version of Leon out of the CG movies in terms of his costume. Well, yeah, you know, there's the whole Infinite Darkness, but whatever. Damnation is a costume that I don't like. I think he looks a lot better in his other costumes and the rest of the Resident Evil games and movies. Now, as far as Jill looking like she did in Death Island and Leon looking much older, this makes a lot of sense, considering the fact that this game's going to take place 4 years after Village. Village took place in 2021. Death Island, the movie that they were both in, took place in 2015, if I'm not mistaken. So that means Village is 6 years after Death Island, and then this game's going to take place 4 years after Village, which means the last time we saw Leon, he was 10 years younger. So yeah, Leon has to look 10 years older. That makes a lot of sense. And Jill, it was revealed that she has that de-aging effect from the T-virus or whatever. So yeah, that makes sense that she's going to look exactly how she did in Death Island. As far as the story bits, set 4 years after Village, that's great. That makes sense. I am a little sad that they are not going to address a cliffhanger in Resident Evil Village. Am I surprised though? Not at all. Capcom has a history with its Resident Evil games in terms of avoiding major cliffhangers and just moving away from it and continuing on. So that doesn't surprise me at all. I am interested in this whole idea of them finally going to address the connections and maybe get Blue Umbrella involved and figure out what the story is with them. I like that we might finally see some closure between the connections, Blue Umbrella, the Megamycete, Evelyn, all of this. I feel like we are finally going to get some facts and get a conclusion to this entire storyline, which is what this source implies. So I'm very excited about that. Everything else about this leak makes a lot of sense to me, and you know, I'm not against it at all. I do like the idea that stalker enemies are going to return. I know there's a whole fatigue thing with stalker enemies. I know there's a lot of content creators that are like, hey, no more stalker enemies. I like my stalker enemies. What can I say? I enjoy my stalker enemies as long as you don't abuse it too much. Like Mr. X in Resident Evil 2 Remake was the perfect amount. Jack Baker in Resident Evil 7 was also the perfect amount. If you use it right, it can be done really well, and it can actually make the game much scarier without it being like, without it just overwhelming us with the stalker enemies. So I'm fine with the stalker enemies returning. I'm interested in the constant enemy that's going to be the stalker enemy for Leon. The Goatman sounds kind of lame, but you know what, I'm not gonna discount it. I want to see what this Goatman looks like first before I say anything about it. But here's my concern. Dusk Golem did comment on this leak. He did mention and commented on this leak, and he said that he heard some of this stuff as well, but it didn't come from someone that he trusts, that he thinks is a reliable source. And he actually he claims that he doesn't think a lot of this stuff that was mentioned in this leak is actually true. There's some stuff that isn't true. I'm assuming that he's talking about the Barry and Chris reference. I'm gonna assume that's what he's referring to when he says that, because again, the Barry thing, seems a little far-fetched to me. That does not make sense at all. But again, you know, Dusk Golem himself also isn't the most reliable person. And, you know, I say that in the fact that, you know, he is one of the only people that did say, hey, Resident Evil 9 is not getting shown off at Summer Game Fest, and it didn't get shown off. So he does need a little more credit, but still, it could go either way. I just want to talk about this stuff. The last thing I want to mention before we move away, like I said, the main villain is Mr. Simon. That's interesting to me because that seems like a fake name that is going to be revealed to be someone else. And Mr. Simon Spencer, Mr. Simon Ozwell E Spencer. Yeah, I really believe in that theory. I told you guys. I mentioned this earlier on my channel. If you guys are a follower of Nerd Space Games, you've seen me cover this leak before, or not leak, I'm sorry, theory before, how I believe Ozwell E Spencer is going to appear in Resident Evil 9, how he's going to be involved with either heading the BSAA as like a clone version of himself, or he's going to be running Blue Umbrella, or he's going to be running the Connections. He's connected to one of those 3 organizations. I just don't know which. And if this leak is indeed true, I think Mr. Simon is going to be Ozwell E Spencer. That's my theory. I'm calling right now. No one else is claiming that right now. I believe it's going to be Ozwell E Spencer. As far as how he's going to still be alive, that's a whole other video I did on the channel. Go check that video out. It's about, you know, who I think should be the next villain of Resident Evil 9. Check that video out. I'll have it at the end of this video. I'm not going to waste your time talking about that all over again. But yeah, guys, as far as this leak goes, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff. There's a lot of stuff that is very fan servicey. I think some of it is accurate. I think some of it is not so much. I think a lot of it is, you know, right there in the middle where it's just, okay, this is stuff that we expect. This is building off of things that we've already heard before. I don't know. For me, I'm going to go ahead and say this, and I know it's going to break a lot of people's hearts. I don't think the Barry Burton thing is right. I don't know if Jill and Leon are going to be the main characters. I feel like Jill's going to be a supporting character. As much as I don't want it, I think Jill is going to be a supporting character, and that's going to break my heart. But that's going to do it for this episode of Nerd Space Games. Guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Again, this was just something just to talk about the leaks and rumors going around right now and get your opinions on it. Hit up the comments. Let me know what you guys think about these leaks, and if there's any that you believe or that you want to be true, let me know in the comments. But until next time, I'll see you on the next episode of Nerd Space Games. Take care.